Bryce Covert is with us. She's a reporter with the Center for American Progress's blog, Think Progress. Hey, Bryce.
Hi, how you doing?
I am well. Am I pronouncing your last name right?
Covert, like covert up.
Aha, perfect. Okay, you wrote a great piece about how the government botched the Wall Street crisis. I would like to ask you about that, and also Mississippi drug testing welfare recipients. But the one that was at the top of the list was banning tipping and paying a living wage. Is it okay if we talk about all these things?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. I brought this up at the first hour of the show about the public option, this new brew pub here in D.C. that's going to just pay $15 an hour and benefits rather than tips. And I'm getting all these calls from people who are tipped workers saying, "Hey, wait a minute, I was making a pretty good living here." And I'm wondering, what and when you were researching this, what did you learn about tipped workers?
Well, I think the first thing to remember about tip workers in this country is that they have a much lower minimum wage than every other worker. The tipped minimum wage is $2.13, which should probably sound pretty low because the minimum wage for everyone else is $7.25 an hour. And now restaurant owners are supposed to make up the difference if tips don't bring their hourly wages up to $7.25 an hour, but a lot of them don't. So a lot of people who are working in the restaurant industry are living off really low wages. The tips aren't making it up, and that's why we see a poverty rate among them that is nearly triple that of everyone else. I understand that for some people, the tips can feel really lucrative, and I think in certain establishments that's probably true. But by and large, that doesn't tend to help people make a really stable living. And it also comes with a lot of other unsavory side effects. The research on tipping really shows that people think that what they're doing is rewarding good service, but that's really not what ends up happening. Tips really don't vary very much by service. A lot of people say they're not even paying 20%, which is basically the standard we all think of when we tip. 11% of people say they leave nothing at all. So it's a system that's not really rewarding people for better service. What they end up rewarding people for are things like they're a woman, or a woman who's attractive will get even more of a tip. White servers make more money than black servers. So there's a lot of sort of unconscious things that are going on that are expressed in tipping that we don't really like, and the things we think that we like to express, like appreciation for good service, aren't actually what's coming through.
Now, I mentioned Louise and I and our kids lived in Germany for a year back many years ago, but at that time, and I'm assuming it's still the case, German companies pay their wait staff well enough that most Germans don't tip, or when they do tip, they basically just round out the change. If your meal came to $25.30 and you put down $26 and they bring you back 70 cents, you leave the coinage on the table, and it might amount to $1 or $2 because they've got larger coins than we do. But occasionally you would leave a tip if you got what you thought was really extraordinary service. But I told the story of I left a 20% tip once when in the early days when we had moved there, and the waiter brought it back to me. He was insulted. He felt that I was ridiculing him. And is that a system? I mean, that's typical all across Europe and in many other parts of the world. Is that a system that we should consider adopting in the United States?
Right. Yeah, I think that is a much more humane system. What these restaurants are doing in the U.S. that are experimenting with them is that they are getting rid of tips, and instead they're just paying their workers a living wage and giving them good benefits, which I think is a better trade-off. The public option, which is a bar in D.C. that's opening and will be doing this, is going to pay at least $15 an hour, hopefully maybe a little bit more for those who have a little bit more experience. I pointed out in my piece, it's one of the first restaurants or bars that I've seen to do this that doesn't cater to a high-end clientele, so I think that's really interesting. But some other restaurants have done the same thing more on the high-end scale, and I think they make a pretty good deal for their workers. At a sushi restaurant in New York, they get vacation days, paid sick leave, health insurance, as well as decent pay, which is a lot more than what most restaurant workers can say they get. And then in a West Coast place called Linkery, they banned tipping, and the founder also really loves it because he says that his service improved, his revenue went up, more people wanted to work there. He found that the environment that it creates is one of teamwork instead of sort of competing against each other for tips. And the service improves because, like I said, tips don't really vary on service, so you're not really sending a message. So it's easier for a manager to be the one talking about service than waiters feeling like they're trying to figure out what it is that they're getting in feedback from the people that they're serving. And all of that leads, that better atmosphere has led him to have higher profits because people want to come eat there. Wow,
that's great. Now, meanwhile, down in Mississippi, I was going off on Bobby Jindal in the last hour. We had a conversation about sex ed in our schools. But at Mississippi next door, we talk about the war on women, but I have not heard the phrase war on the poor used very much. But I don't know how else to describe what Mississippi is doing.
Yeah, Mississippi just passed a bill to drug test some welfare recipients. Basically what they're going to do is have all people who are applying to temporary assistance for needy families, which is cash assistance, they have to answer a questionnaire that evaluates their likelihood of substance abuse. And then if they are deemed to be at risk, which I think is interesting, I'm not entirely sure how they determine that from a questionnaire, but if they're deemed to be at risk, then they have to take a drug test. And if they test positive, they have to undergo treatment for substance abuse. If they test positive again, they get kicked out for 3 months. And a third positive test kicks them out for a year. And now while you may be saying to yourself, well, you know, they've tested positive for drugs, I think about what that does. That cuts off someone's lifeline when maybe they are struggling with substance abuse. Right. How are they supposed to get back on their feet if they don't have a little bit of help to get them through for an entire year? It's a really long period to go.
Is the state providing the funding for the treatment?
I'm not sure where the funding for the treatment comes. I mean,
they're not expanding. They're not expanding Medicaid, so they're not throwing them into the public health system.
Right. They are funding at least the administrative costs of doing these drug tests through money that comes to them from the government for this program. And what's disturbing about that is that states get a limited pot of money from the government for welfare, and then the states have somewhat wide discretion to decide how they use it. But if they use some of that money to administer drug tests, that means it's not money that's going towards benefits or helping people pay for child care or helping with job training. You know, it's finite. You steal it from it for one thing, it's taking it from another. And it's not the first state by far to experiment with drug testing, but what we've seen with all the other ones is that it's very costly and you don't get any benefit from it. You know, there's a stereotype for whatever reason that welfare recipients are more likely to be drug users, but time and again we found that's actually not the case, that they have lower rates of substance abuse than the general population. So it's kind of, you're on a wild goose chase for something that's quite expensive.
Yeah, it's a racialized stereotype. I mean, this goes back. I remember Ronald Reagan in 1980 saying, "Doesn't it get you upset when you're standing in line waiting to buy a hamburger and some young buck," and we all know what he meant when he said that, is standing in front of you waiting to buy T-bone steaks with food stamps, and it's just so wrong. Anyhow, Bryce Covert, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.